Hey, what's up? How's it going? My name's Trevor Jacob. Welcome to my channel. I share my experiences with you and with the intentions of hopefully benefiting as many people out there as I possibly can through the things that I've learned and experienced. And yeah, so today I was going to talk to you about a pretty interesting topic that a lot of us have a lot of confusion about right now, especially in the action sports world. There's been a lot of people taking their own lives over the last few, I guess, decades, but it's been happening for a lot longer than that, and I'm here to just talk to you about it and share a couple words about my point of view on it and what might be going on, and certain things that I've experienced that may help you and may add value or make you consider some different points of view or gain some understanding or come to some more understanding within that. In the recent decades, or even just the recent years, there's been not only a lot of action sports athletes such as hockey players and football players, but also, motocross riders and Olympic athletes such as skiers, Jarrett Peterson, Kelly Catlin. There's a lot of different Olympians, but also, professional dirt bike riders, Mike Sinkmars. There's just so many different. Just a couple days ago, the reason that I'm making this video is because one of my friends, Jaeger Bailey, just took his own life here, just a couple blocks away from where I am right now. Colin Winkleman, Dave Mira. There's so many heroes that have taken themselves out of this world. And we look at the Sonny Garcia, who I don't exactly have an update on how he's doing right now, but he attempted to take his own life. He's a pro surfer. He is a pro surfer, and that just happened a couple months ago. So for me, if anybody out there doesn't know my background, I've spent my entire life as an action sports athlete. I'm an Olympic athlete for America. Competed as the #1 qualifying American for snowboarding in snowboard cross in 2014. But anyways, beyond that, I am a lifelong lover of action sports, and I've based my entire life around it up until now, but I still do. And action sports for me has become my family. It's become everything that I really know and kind of associate with. So it's it found me at a very young age. So I've been able to really get to know a lot of different, I guess you could say, family members or friends or people that you become in connection with through action sports and doing the things that we love. And there's been a big thing, a big question. A lot of people have reached out to me lately, asking a lot about my thoughts on what's happening. Is there, a relation to head trauma? Is there, what's really going on here? Now, a lot of boxers as well have taken the steps to take their own lives as well. And now there's a lot of, scientific research that I think a lot of us don't really have a grasp on yet. So a lot of it, until you look at like factual information of what's really going on, I would say that most of everything that is being talked about right now, potentially even including what I'm saying, the words that are coming out of my mouth, is all speculation. But what I can do is share some information on my own opinion and the things that I've learned through being a lifelong fan and a lifelong experiencer of action sports, and the things that come with it, the people that I've met now. For me, I've experienced, my own, I guess, way of feeling the roughness of what a competitive person can feel, with the ups and downs of a lifestyle that brings you the ultimate highs and the ultimate lows. Now, when I say that I experience these things in my own way, what I can tell you is that when you are a competitive-minded person, or I don't exactly want to say an adrenaline seeking person, but I would say that somebody that is drawn to do the things that somebody like myself or some of these other people that I'm mentioning have done or do, or live their life in a way doing those things. Well, I can only speak for myself, but I know that a lot of different people that come from and have interest in action sports, I don't necessarily want to categorize everyone as having or needing an outlet, and action sports being that outlet. But I know for a fact that myself and a lot of my friends have come from places of uncomfortability that ultimately, when you find something that you love so much that makes you so happy, you're gonna stick with it. You're gonna find that. And I think a lot of people to begin with find action sports. That mindset already exists and takes place within them, and then action sports is ultimately an outlet for that person, or it's a possibility. Now, I'm not categorizing everybody here, but what I'm saying is action sports ultimately for myself was an outlet from other energy and other things that, let's just say, if they weren't pointed in the action sports direction, they would be pointed in another direction. And I'm saying that everyone's other direction could be a different avenue. But in a lot of ways, and when I categorize action sports, I just mean this lifestyle of doing, potentially dangerous but recreational activities that make somebody happy and having fun. That's a big portion of it. But before I get too deep into this, I wanted to start by saying that with a couple injuries, some serious injuries for myself, it started with two reconstructive ankle surgeries, and really it was breaking my back 2 different times. Once I ripped my tailbone off my spine, and then this last one was last December. I exploded my L2 vertebrae into my spinal canal, and that almost left, luckily, 5 millimeters from severing my spinal cord. So I'm very blessed to have gotten very, very lucky there, and ultimately it was an incredible amount of suffering involved in that. But now I look back, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me, because it's changed a lot of the way that I see life and the things that I've done in the past, and kind of really refocused my importance on a lot of different things. So starting with that, what I'm getting at with these injuries is that through different surgeries and being in the hospital for days at a time and a lot of pain, it makes you start to question and rethink, what am I doing, and why am I doing this? Isn't just to take a breath of fresh air and tell somebody you love them, or have a nice piece of food, or drink a cup of water, isn't that enough? Like, can't you just be grateful to just be appreciative, to just be here and be alive? And when you get into these situations that are so death-defying, where you realize that life could have been taken from you just a moment ago, and when you're in that situation enough, well, I'm not going to get too into this, but your brain releases a chemical that slows down time and really allows you to process things a lot differently. So when you get into that situation enough times, you become comfortable with that feeling. And so basically one millisecond of just a 1 pixel of your vision turns into something that could feel like a year long. And when that happens and you become comfortable with that situation, and you understand how that feels, to basically everything from there on, when you accept it, it's okay. But I'm not going to get too far into that. But when you experience that enough, and I know a couple of you that are watching this video know what I'm talking about. Well, when you get into there, it's very depleting. It takes a lot of your energy away. It makes you contemplate things a lot afterwards. And when you're in that situation enough, you can start to think and question a lot. And for me, that spawned, a lot of my injuries have spawned a lot of curiosity. And for me, I've been able to, in a very difficult manner, change a lot of the things that have allowed me to study a lot on this topic of sports psychology and understanding the brain and the neural pathways and understanding why I've done the things that I've done as far as jumping off cliffs and doing things that are very dangerous and going out of your way to live your life, quote unquote, on the edge, but doing dangerous things that ultimately, if they don't end up in a very, very exciting celebration of I'm still alive, they'll end up with, death. And that's the fun, that's the risk, that's why it feels so good. Now, I've been able to now study gambling addicts and drug addicts and alcoholics and see if there's correlation in my own mind. Now, I'm sharing this video not to gain your opinion and tell you how right I am. I'm simply creating this video to share with somebody out there that is curious about these things and taking in my knowledge for my own knowledge of whatever I'm learning and considering. I'm simply freely thinking to you because this is my own journey, and I'm simply just telling you the things that I've learned. Now, if you don't think I'm right, then that's totally fine, because I'm not sure that I'm right either, or I'm even onto something. It's just that my creativity and focus and curiosity has now transpired into doing these death-defying things and moving into why have I done these death-defying things and what makes somebody tick and what makes somebody go off and do these things, and is it a mindset, is it a personality type, what's really going on there. Now, this has led me to deeply study this for many years now. It started out just kind of as a hobby of curiosity. Now it's become a full-time obsession, and that's why I'm here to talk to you about it, is because it's one topic of many that I'm very, very passionate about and curious about. So moving right along into the fact of more of like a habit and a neural pathway connection to a habit. There's many different theories on how long it takes to form a habit or break a habit. Now, the average one that a lot of people consider to be true is 45 days. It takes 45 days to consciously and subconsciously break or make any habit. And make it stick, or make it, in either way, make it stick. Now, from that, if you want to check it out, it's a pretty unique book by a girl named Loretta called The Habits of a Happy Brain. And it's a pretty fun little tiny book, but it holds a lot of truth within the metaphors and interesting stuff inside that book. But it claims that, within 45 days, it's a shitty 45 days, or it can be, but you can change anything. And for me, I wanted to just see if that was true. That was at the beginning of this journey a few years ago, and I studied it and wanted to see, okay, can I switch my skydiving habit with maybe something else that makes me happy? Now, I'm not going to say that it's easy, but it's definitely possible. So I recommend you checking that out. But anyways, getting back onto the topic of what I think's really going on here with people taking their own lives, friends of mine taking their own lives through, many different forms of doing that, that it ultimately comes down to uncomfortability, right? Someone is not at ease. They're in pain, and that's the reality of that. Now, there's a lot of different people that are doing this, but what I've found in my own experience of knowing many friends that have taken their own lives firsthand is that these people I can relate to in the same way of many of us that are here are high-strung, and when I say high-strung, I mean very high-energy, deeply passionate individuals that are very driven, very focused, very intense individuals, and they need a place to bring that energy to and focus it. And if it's not being focused, you can say that it would be like a rocket. A metaphor would be like a rocket going into space, and all of that energy is all focused into that rocket. But if you see it, all that energy within that rocket just decides to go in every which direction, then it's going to be a disaster. And if somebody with that type of energy and that type of mindset and that type of mindset is not focused in a certain direction, well, that focus at the end of the day is ultimately what's creating somebody to be a top level cyclist, a top level snowboarder, a top level whatever it may be, hockey player, football player, basketball player, boxer. That high energy is ultimately what's creating that person to be the best in the world at what they do, period. Now, if that same amount of energy is being dispersed in different directions and maybe focusing on things that aren't a good idea to be focusing on, well, it's ultimately going to end in that focus going elsewhere. And that focus going elsewhere can become a science experiment that is uncertain. And in my own opinion and my own experience, I'll give you one experience for me. A lot of Olympic athletes have committed suicide and taken their own lives. And ultimately, when an energy field comes into a focused position and then becomes their life, and they become so focused on that specific goal that it becomes their reality, it becomes everything, it becomes their world. And the reason that I know that is because I've experienced it. Now, for me, one of the hardest times, I wouldn't say the hardest, but one of the hardest times in my life was focusing on the Olympic dream for 4 years leading up to the 2014 Olympics. I was every single day focused on this goal. And I just said, I'm going to win the Olympics. I'm going to win the Olympics. And I would go out every day and train and make sure that when the Olympics came around, I'm going to win those Olympics. Now, 4 years of training, and a lot of people have done this for a long time, much longer than that. And honestly, I had the vision in my head for me for 4 years, but it ultimately came down to hands-on, actively training for 2 years leading up to it, which is not that long compared to some people. For me, I put my heart and soul into it. And what I didn't know as a young 20-year-old kid is when you have a goal like that and it comes in a competition form, and that this is why a lot of boxers, a lot of athletes come down to this goal of, hey, I'm going to get that that Super Bowl ring or whatever it is. And what for me happened was when the Olympics came around, I won't get into what happened in my own experience, but I knew I had it. I knew I was going to win. I had my focus, like I was so committed to winning. And then, long story short, I didn't win. Okay, I came very close, but I did not win. And then I didn't realize that goal that I'd been so focused on for so many years, or at least a few years, all came down. I didn't realize that it all came down to one day. One day was that goal. And if that goal didn't match my expectations of how life's supposed to be, is I'm supposed to win this gold medal and it didn't happen, then what? So for me, I had no backup care. I had no backup feeling. I had no backup plan. I was just like, nope, like I'm going to win the Olympics and that's going to be my ticket to happiness. Big mistake. Big mistake. But that led me into, for example, I won't really get into the depths of things, but it led into addictions, not substance-related addictions, but addictions. And ultimately it came down to this high-focused energy, not having an outlet, and just being a uncertain experiment that just was exploding all over the place. And it taught me a lot. I didn't sleep for 3 weeks after that day. Straight up nocturnal hallucinations, the whole thing, could not sleep. And that was an incredible thing, but it led down into a terrible spiral for the next probably 1.5 to 2 years, leading into losing 3 or 4 friends within 4 or 5 months that were really close, all during the same time. And it basically came down to this like crazy explosion of feelings. And it's probably, a lot of people think about pain and you think about, a physical pain. Well, like, your hand's broken or your foot's broken or we have whatever it is. But I think the most important thing that needs to be talked about, especially right now, is the most pain doesn't come, sure, it's physical, but there's a lot more mental suffering going on our planet right now than physical suffering. And for the topic of this video, I'm specifically talking about the correlation between athletes and suicide and what's really going on here. And I'm simply just explaining my own point of view, and how, like, for example, Jaeger, that just passed away two days ago, it's like literally one of the last people I've ever pictured doing that. And I hadn't seen him in a little while, but I know the last time that I was with him, like, just so stoked. Like, we were just talking about snowboarding and everything that was happening. He was so pumped, but he was, he was very intense. I mean, look at the way that he rode his snowboard, like unlike anyone else in the whole world, and probably will be never again duplicated. Like, incredible. But when you look at the tie between, and it's so hard to talk about, is because you look at this tie between ultimate creativity and ultimate, destruction. And, if you look at the great artists or musicians of their day, there's a very similar correlation there with very intense, high-strung individuals. Really, it's cliche to say living on the edge, but it's more about being very intense in the way that they live their life. And if they're not doing something very intense, and I know this from personal experiences, if you're not doing something very intense, then it's very, very difficult to tame your thoughts and tame your intentions and tame your emotions into the same kind of aspect to be pointed in like a calmer way, because you're so used to this outlet that's so intense that if it, it may not even be intentional, that gets pushed and your focus gets pushed in the wrong direction, and it can get the best of you. And I'm just here today to talk about why this is happening, and more importantly, how we can prevent this from happening more. I think that the first thing is to talk about it, is to raise awareness about what's really going on. There's hundreds and hundreds of these cases of action sports athletes that, kind of just move with the swiftness and don't really think about, like, oh yeah, that's terrible, it's such a freak accident. But if you look at the statistics over time, there's something going on here, and a lot of people bring it back to the whole TBI thing, traumatic brain injury, and that correlation. See, for me, that's a gamble in itself, because there are studies now being done by scientists where if you actually, this is a crazy thing, but it's true, is if it's a full gamble that if sometimes head injuries will actually create benefits to the person, versus most head injuries are creating not benefits. And it's a weird thing to correlate, and it's a lot, the brain is so intricate that a lot of us really don't even know. And I believe that a lot of science projects and a lot of different studies are really not that valid, in my opinion. But a lot of them sure can show some facts that are pretty interesting. But for me, having many concussions and being able to relate, I think that it can make you, it can definitely make you a different person. I know a lot of friends that have become a little bit just changed by that experience. Now, for me, I've been really trying to grasp this whole thing coming down a lot. And the reason that I'm making this video again is because there's a lot of people asking, and a lot of close friends that are asking my take on this topic, knowing that I've taken my intensity from my action sports and really focused it on learning more about what's really going on behind the mindset of a lot of us. And, ultimately, I think that it comes down to realizing that we need some type of we need some type of communication. We need some type of conversation that's starting and needs to start, that's talking about this subject. A lot of people are afraid to voice how they are really feeling inside. There's a lot of jealousy going on between a lot of things. There's a lot of comparison happening within, not only action sports, but the world, the community of our world, with social media and different things that are also bringing people down into a lower mindset. And there's just a lot to be talked about. But for today, I think that it's really important to just be aware of why are some people taking their lives too soon and what is really going on. And I think to really discuss this in a deeper manner. I think that there's just going to be more people needing to become aware of why, and the perception of what's happening within what I'm talking about here. Now, I don't really have like some grand answer, like this is what's going to happen, and if you do this, then you're not going to become a victim of depression and this and that. But what I can say is that it's going to take a lot of effort to remain a happy person, because that's what happens in nature. It's like the gardener that doesn't take care of his garden. There's tons of weeds that start to show up, and then by the time he just forgets about his garden, the whole thing's overgrown and it's destroyed. Now, if you don't take care of yourself, that's the same thing that's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I'm saying that with this topic, you need to become informed and be a very on top of it gardener to make sure that the weeds aren't forming in your mind, so that you can maintain your healthy garden. The metaphor is your mind. And I think that it just becomes that focus of, especially from people that are so high strung and so intense and so creative in their own way. I think that same focus needs to be consciously focused on getting better, having a better mindset, having a better, healthier way of going about your days, if that is what you're going through. Now, some people out there can just be completely fine and never have a suffering day in their life and feel no depression and nothing at all. But a lot of people out there, that's not the case. And when that is not the case, and you're one of those people watching this video, you have to take a conscious effort. You have to take action to say, this is the way that I'm feeling, and then ask the question, why is this the way that I'm feeling? And then back it up with your own education and your own knowledge of studying other people's points of view through books, audio tapes, whatever it may be, to get a better grasp and a better understanding of, hey, this is the way that I'm feeling, this is how other people dealt with it, and I'm going to take a stand to see myself objectively from a different person's perspective and say, this person does not seem happy, or this person does. Seeing yourself from a third person and being able to see that. Now, I know that's not, always the option. And a lot of people, are staying in their own head. Now, there's a quote, stay in your head, you're dead. And we need to let people in. That's the end of the story, is we need to talk about ourselves, our issues, our problems with somebody. We need to grasp it, even if it's to yourself. You need to let yourself in. You need to let other people in. You need to let your family in on understanding, this is what I feel. And that's a very difficult conversation to have. Now, ultimately, I think that nothing's going to come from one video of me talking about the things that I've learned. But, at the end of the day, this hopefully can start a conversation, or I think that I'd like to have more conversations like this happening so more people are benefited from it. We've seen this through the lines of a lot of people having a very, very difficult time of transitioning from an action sports career or a professional athletic career, or just a very intense professional career of some sort in general, and then feeling like, oh, this is done with, or it's over, now what do I do? But that same energy is still balled up in that mind, and it's going, I'm gonna go this way or that way or whatever, and it can become disastrous. Now, I think that needs to be discussed, that needs to be talked about, that needs to be focused on. I'm gonna be doing a lot more of these videos, so come back to this channel if you want to check out more. I'll be talking more about this. I think mental health is a major issue that's going on right now that we all need to discuss as a planet, as a species, because it's a very big deal, and there's something going on that is not okay, and it needs to change. So I think that ultimately we all collectively have to work together to figure out why this is happening, and really figure out, the cure to it. I will say that the more you're bombarded with, the more different distractions and things you're bombarded with can be an interesting thing that you got to be aware of. But I would say that you just got to be conscious of that. And something that's definitely saved me and a lot of times is simply meditation. Now people will come to me and say, what is meditation? What do you mean by meditation? I can't meditate. Well, the short answer is meditation is for me, this is my opinion, that meditation is the act of thinking while simultaneously watching those thoughts while simultaneously not thinking. So that might throw a lot of you off, but the fact is being able to sit in a blank room with silence and your eyes closed or not, with no thoughts, is a very important thing to start practicing in the same way that you practice to read or write or talk or whatever. That is an art that needs to become more and more, I think, expressed in our world, and it'll bring a lot of things, peace and clarity and health. But ultimately, with this, I just want to send out my condolences to all the families of people that have lost dear loved ones. It is a very, very tragic thing, and unfortunately, I've dealt with it many times, and it's never easy. But at the end of the day, we need to find understanding of what's going on, why is this happening, how can we stop this from happening, and it's just not okay, and we need to find out how we can stop this from happening. So I'm going to be doing more of these videos and talking more about this. So I guess I'll look forward to seeing you then. Tomorrow we're going to be at Mammoth Mountain, celebrating the life of Jaeger Bailey, and we are going to do some runs for him. So I'm just shocked that this is happening more and more, and ultimately it just comes down to figuring out why, because there's a lot of people out there, I think, that don't understand where this all comes from, and they think that it's just like some crazy thing that's happening that's just a complete out of the blue nowhere. But I'm trying to pinpoint it down from my own perspective, being so tied in and close with so many different people that have now done this, that I'm trying to get a grasp on where it lies. And for me, it lies somewhere in the focus that's going on, and something that is changing within human beings that are actively finding action sports. But I think for me, and the way that I found action sports in general as an escape, as an outlet, it's bigger than that. I think that it's a mindset that's, like I said before, all kind of spearheading into something that's happening with the type of person that is drawn to those things and then not consciously realizing that their focus is changing. And I don't know, I just want to prevent it, and I want as many people to become aware of this as possible so that we can start doing something about it and changing it. That's it for now. I love you all. Thanks for watching this, and I'll talk to you soon.